Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Samantha Heathwood.
Good afternoon. Our top stories on 7. Queensland celebrates an historic Origin win in Sydney, plus the consequences of that horror head knock. A family's heartbreak no closer to answers following an inquest into a mother's suspicious death. The Premier's multi-billion-dollar boost to turbocharge renewable energy. And tributes to the king of rock and roll, the Gold Coast falling in love with Elvis. Good afternoon. It was a sickening head knock that shocked Queensland. Maroons fullback Reece Walsh was out cold just 7 minutes into the Origin opener. Now a Blues debutant is facing the consequences while our state celebrates its biggest ever win in Sydney. Mitch Crone has more.
A reserve Maroons outfit broke camp here in Parramatta a little earlier this morning after ambushing the Blues at a core stadium. After celebrating a record-breaking 38-10 win in Sydney, the Maroons emerged with sore heads, none more so than Reece Walsh.
Update?
Right. Yeah, all good.
Big thumbs up?
Yeah, big thumbs up.
Ready for game 2?
Yeah, ready to go.
Forceful contact. They clearly had a target on him.
That's ridiculous. At the end of the day, they got their opinions, which I'll hold my tongue on that one.
I letting my family, my state, and especially my teammates down. I feel like that's probably the toughest thing about it. Accidentally clipped his head, so I hope he's doing all right.
Job's not done, but it was a good night last night, and obviously the boys had a good feeling in the dressing rooms.
The Maroons will reconvene in Queensland in a fortnight before heading to Melbourne, with our aim to seal the series.
The family of a Queensland mother whose remains were found at the bottom of the Kangaroo Point cliffs has been left with more questions than answers following an inquest. And a warning, this story contains images of an Indigenous person who's died. Rachel Baxter has the details.
Good afternoon. Constance Watcho was last seen alive in November 2017. Her brothers reported her missing in February, and 7 months later, her remains were found in a bag at the bottom of a cliff in Kangaroo Point. Today, almost a year and a half after the inquest, coroner Stephanie Gallagher ruled the cause of her death may never be known. The coroner found while her death was suspicious, the cause is undetermined and there is not enough evidence to identify a person who did it. The location of her death is unknown. It's more likely than not she died close to the time she went missing rather than when her remains were found. Outside court this morning, her nephew, Mervyn Riley, said her family is devastated and will continue to fight to find out what happened.
Is it justice or just us? But we aren't going to stop fighting this. We're going to keep going, not for us, but for our children, because their children needs closure. We didn't get that today. I could not believe I sat in there for less than 5 minutes. It was heartbreaking for everybody today.
Over the years, there have been 3 persons of interest, but despite this, no one has ever been charged. Outside court today, her family said they will call on the new police commissioner to meet with them to fight not just justice for Constance, but all First Nations women who go missing under suspicious circumstances.
There's been a tense standoff between police and a woman in Wynnum. Neighbours raised the alarm after allegedly seeing her waving around weapons outside her home. Here's Jordan Bissell.
Good morning. Residents returning home on State of Origin night found their street blocked after a tense siege had unfolded on Chestnut Street in Wynnum. Police say a woman believed to be in her 30s or 40s had been seen at the front of the property, waving knives and what appeared to be a gun yesterday evening. Officers cordoned off the road and residents trying to get home were escorted around the block by police.
They told me to walk around this way, around the block. I said, no, I said, live just up here, so one of them come up with me. Walked up with me,
Others chose to stay with friends for the night as the tense standoff unfolded.
So the police have blocked off the street. There's a person with a knife who was being threatening or something.
The woman was alone in one of the units. Police negotiators used loudspeakers to plead with her to come outside. The woman peacefully surrendered herself to officers around 4 o'clock this morning. She was seen being put into an ambulance. No charges have been laid.
Jordan Bissell there. Greens leader Adam Bandt is threatening to sue the Attorney General, accusing him of defamation. Rob Scott is in Canberra with the details.
This relates to a television interview that Mark Dreyfus gave in which he accused the Greens leader and his party of encouraging violent behaviour and even criminal damage during pro-Palestine protests outside the electorate offices of a number of politicians, including his own and the Prime Minister's. Blockades which have seen offices splashed in red paint and some staff even threatened. Now, Mr Bant has condemned any violence or vandalism and believes Mr Dreyfus's comments are defamatory.
They have been encouraging criminal damage of MPs' electorate offices, encouraging really riotous behaviour.
I think that the First Law Officer of this country should not make utterly unfounded statements and spread disinformation.
The government and the opposition have united against the Greens, accusing the party of using the war in Gaza to undermine social cohesion here in Australia. But rejecting that, Adam Band says the government's just distracting, accusing it of supporting the conflict.
The Prime Minister is desperate to make it about anything other than the children who are dying in Gaza.
It is beyond my comprehension why anyone in this place would seek to suggest that Australia were participants in a conflict when we are not.
Such an emotive issue for so many people. No doubt there is a lot more to play out here in Parliament.
A man has faced court over a dramatic firebombing in Brisbane last month. Video from the scene shows the moment the blaze broke out at a shopping centre in Petrie. Several businesses, including a bakery and seafood takeaway shop, were destroyed. A 35-year-old man was arrested in Sydney on Tuesday and extradited to Queensland. He was charged with arson and break and enter overnight. The Premier has unveiled a multi-billion-dollar boost to turbocharge renewable energy. Let's go to State Political Editor Marlena Wapp. Marlena, Stephen Miles made the announcement at the Forex Brewery.
Yes, Sam, he delivered a campaign-style speech at the brewery in Milton when he talked about the election in October and launched fresh attacks on the opposition leader, David Crisafulli, saying that there's a lot at stake if Labor loses the election. The Premier announced that investment in the state's renewable energy and jobs plan would increase from $19 billion to $26 billion over 4 years. He says next Tuesday's budget will make clear exactly what projects the money goes into as he faced questions about potential cost blowouts. Stephen Miles says he's achieved a lot in 174 days since becoming Premier, praising his own leadership style months out from the election.
The contrast will be incredibly clear. You have David Crisafulli trying to not say or be anything, while I have a clear plan to address the concerns of Queenslanders now.
A government that's been in power for 10 years, seeking a fourth term or 14 years in office, with no plan other than to somehow try and cling to power.
Now, David Crisafulli says he'll map out his vision in terms of home ownership when he delivers his budget reply speech next Thursday. I'll have more coming up at 6 o'clock, Sam.
Marlena Wapp at State Parliament, thank you. Well, 80 years ago today, Allied forces launched a fight back that would liberate Europe from Nazi tyranny. The last surviving D-Day veterans have been joined by senior royals and world leaders at commemorations. Europe Bureau Chief Hugh Whitfeld is in Normandy.
It's from Portsmouth that much of the Allied Armada left from, and it's where 6,000 people gathered by the English Channel to commemorate the sacrifice of those who took part in what was to become the largest ever seaborne invasion, an enormous Operation Overlord, as it was called. 160,000 Allied troops storming the beaches here in Normandy to drive back the Nazis. The King, the Queen and Prince William joining dignitaries from around the world, descendants of those who fought and died, and those few remaining D-Day veterans, all of them now well into their 90s or beyond the age of 100, all with incredible stories to tell. The Queen appearing to be visibly moved. The King saying today the number of surviving veterans is tragically dwindling.
All knew that both victory and failure were possible, and none could know their fate. It is a near impossible task to imagine the emotion of that day, the pride of being part of so great an enterprise.
Here on the Normandy coast, people have arrived from all over the world. 1 million people are expected to join services across Normandy later tonight, Australian time, on what is D-Day here in France. They are not just commemorating the sacrifice of those who fought, but also celebrating what was to become the liberation of France and continental Europe from Nazi rule. The King will be here along with the US President, Emmanuel Macron, the French President, the Ukrainian President too, the German Chancellor will be here, and Australia will be represented by the Governor-General.
Now have a look at the weather, and Tony, some perfect conditions as we celebrate Queensland Day.
Yeah, Sam, I feel like that sun is shining that little bit brighter today after that great Origin win last night. Now, a little bit of history. The 6th of June, 1859, Queensland separated from New South Wales, and I bet we're glad we did at the moment. And, of course, we've got so many things to celebrate, from the Gold Coast to down on the southern border up towards the reef and the tropics. And, of course, this beautiful winter weather also adds to the appeal as well. Now, onto the radar. We did actually squeeze in a few showers overnight between yesterday's mostly sunny conditions and today's blue skies. Just a couple of passing showers, light falls, then eventually clearing out just after midnight. Caloundra and Cape Morton picking up the heaviest totals of 13 and 11 millimetres respectively. Now, the extra cloud kept us a little bit warmer overnight, but still cool by most of our standards if you're up early. Ipswich dropped to 6 before climbing back up to 23 degrees, then double figures closer to the coast, 12 to 23 on the Gold Coast. More sunny days on the way. Sam, I'll be back soon with tomorrow's forecast.
Tony, I'm a sook. It was very cold. Thank you. Well, coming up, a World Health Alert issued with the first lab-confirmed case of a new bird flu strain. Consequences for Donald Trump, his gun licence on the line. And Cooly Rocks pays tribute to the king of rock and roll.
Tonight in 7 News, a Mighty Maroons win, the Hammers hat-trick, plus Reece Walsh on that horror head knock, and the performance that's divided the nation. Also, a youth crime spree, the home targeted again and again, and blast off for Boeing Starliner. 7 News at 6.
Report school holiday getaway deals.
Top family destinations for less than $200 a night, and the simple booking tip to save you 30%.
Plus, we could be knocking on your door with $5,000 in Coles online credit. Start with Sunrise tomorrow morning on 7.
He's one of the most unique and electric entertainers of all time, and today the Cooly Rocks On Festival is paying tribute to the king of rock and roll. Mel Whiteman is there, where, Mel, it's all about Elvis.
It is, Sam. This crowd can't help falling in love with Coolangatta, none more so than Elvis impersonators. They're taking to the stage to show off their best moves and tunes, battling it out in round 1 of the Tribute Artist competition. Paul and Anthony Fennick are the only father-son Elvis duo in Australia, today going toe-to-toe. More than 160,000 people are expected at the 5-day festival. Packed planes touch down from interstate today, passengers getting into the swing of things without even leaving the airport.
They're coming from everywhere, and we're expecting about 20,000 passengers in each day over the 4-day period, and we reckon about 20% of those are just here for the festival, so up to 5,000 passengers a day just coming in to have a good time at Cooly Rocks On.
It's far from over, with plenty of classic cars, costumes and a whole lot of rock and roll still to come.
The World Health Organization is sounding the alarm this afternoon. A man in Mexico has died after contracting a strain of bird flu, the first lab-confirmed human case of infection with the variant. The 59-year-old had multiple underlying medical conditions but hadn't been exposed to poultry when his symptoms set in. Former President Donald Trump's gun licence is expected to be revoked now that he's a convicted felon. The historic verdict in the hush money trial means his already suspended licence could be taken away by the City of New York. Sent July 11, just days before the Republican Party's national convention. It was the murder case that made global headlines. Amanda Knox, the American exchange student who was jailed, then cleared of killing her British roommate in Italy, has had her conviction for slander upheld. A court found she wrongly accused a bar owner she worked for of stabbing Meredith Kircher to death in 2007.
Amanda is very upset, and from the outcome of this hearing, she was looking to have a final point of all this 17 years now judicial procedure.
Knox was sentenced to 3 years prison for the slander conviction. Still ahead, watch the moment a little girl on a safari is picked up by a curious giraffe.
News a Mighty Maroons win, the Hammers hat-trick, plus Reece Walsh on that horror head knock, and the performance that's divided the nation. Also a youth crime spree, the home targeted again and again, and blast off for Boeing Starliner. 7 News at 6.
A toddler in the United States has had a scary experience with a giraffe on safari. Paisley Toten was feeding the animal when she was picked up from the back of her parents' ute.
I saw the giraffe kind of digging around right there, and then it just grabbed her and I didn't see her no more.
It's believed the giraffe was trying to grab a bag of food, not the 2-year-old. Paisley now has a toy giraffe to mark the encounter. A bit safer. Let's have a quick look at today's sport with Alissa.
Thank you very much, Sam. Hello, everyone. Well, as you've seen, the Maroons are 1 win away from 3 straight Origin Series victories, but Reece Walsh won't play again until Game 2 after being knocked out by Joseph Suaalii. His 8th-minute send-off left the Blues a man down, helping Queensland notch their biggest ever win in Sydney, 38-10.
A fired-up Queensland and a new era for the Blues. It's away from Game 2 at the MCG. Mark Beretta, 7 News.
The Lions have been told to forget about the result and be fearless when their season goes on the line tomorrow night against the Bulldogs in Melbourne. Taking this weekend's big freeze to a new level with shirts off at an Origin-flavoured training. Chris Fagan admits his men freezing in front of goals has cost them 3 to 4 wins this season.
If you focus on the result, you can play with a bit too much fear inside of you. You've got to focus on the process. I think the process is fearless. You know, if you just think about what you've got to do in every second of the game.
It'll be 10 years to the day they last beat the Dogs at Marvel Stadium. Mitch Marsh's Aussies overcame a jittery start to win their T20 World Cup opener against Oman by 39 runs in Barbados. Glenn Maxwell's Golden Duck left the Aussies teetering at 3 for 50 in the 9th over.
Oh, what a grab! What a grab that is! Akib Ilias, the skipper, that is quite brilliant.
David Warner and Marcus Stoinis led the rescue mission with half centuries. Stoinis hitting an unbeaten 67 to lift the total to 5 for 164. The all-rounder also starred with the ball, snaring 3 for 19. Mitchell Starc left the field with what's hoped was only a cramp at the start of his final over. Alex de Minaur's French Open run is over, but the Aussie leaves Roland Garros with a career-high world ranking of 9. Playing 4th seed Alexander Zverev in the quarterfinals, de Minaur failed to convert a set point in the 2nd set, then blew a 4-0 lead in the tiebreak. Zverev went on to close it out in straight sets, 6-4, 7-6, 6-4.
Alex de Minaur's run here, his maiden Roland Garros quarterfinal in it. It all comes to an end.
In the women's singles, 17-year-old Mira Andreeva pulled off a stunning quarterfinal upset, defeating world number 2 and Australian Open champion Arina Sabalenka 6-7, 6-4, 6-4. Sam will have plenty more sport for you at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much, Alissa. Well, now it's time to see what's coming up in 7 News at 6 and our Gold Coast Bulletin. Sharon and Steve are here. Good afternoon to you both. Sharon, foreign exchange students have been targeted in a frightening attack.
Yes, Sam, they were racially abused and assaulted in a busy part of Brisbane. A terrible end to a night out. Tonight, hear from one of the victims. Also, luxury cars stolen from a Brisbane home. The youth crime debate reignites once again. We'll have the Premier's take on the ongoing crisis. And should we all be entitled to more time off? Tonight, Inside the Vote, to give all Aussie workers 5 weeks of annual leave. And I don't think anyone will say no to that.
That
Sam?
sounds like a great idea, Sharon. And Steve, a court has handed down a sentence for a nasty assault.
Yes, Sam, tonight the punishment for a man who attacked a nightclub owner on the Glitter Strip. Also, the shock decision on the future of the Arundel Hills Country Club development. Plus, how the city is keeping up with a population boom. And you'll love this one, turning 102. Ron Crutch dances his way to another milestone. Hear the World War II veteran's secrets to a long and happy life will be glued to the TV.
You should see him do the foxtrot. Thank you, Steve.
Or the salsa.
Thanks, Sharon. Our Gold Coast viewers are off to the chase now. Then join Steve for your local news at 5:30. And of course, Sharon and Max at 6 o'clock. The rest of Queensland, more on the Origin thrashing in Sydney. Gilly's in the studio with his thoughts on the game. A former pilot takes the stand in his double murder trial. And later, after the weather, the national anthem rendition that's divided opinions.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Samantha Heathwood.
Good afternoon. Here's a quick look at our top stories today. An inquest into the suspicious death of Constance Watchshow has failed to find answers, with the coroner ruling the cause of her death may never be known. The Queensland mother's remains were found in a bag at the bottom of Kangaroo Point Cliffs in 2018. The Premier has announced a boost to the renewable energy sector, increasing funding from $19 to $26 billion over 4 years. The Treasurer will have more details in the state budget next Tuesday. And Federal Greens leader Adam Band is threatening to sue Attorney General Mark Dreyfus. Mr Band claims he was defamed in TV interviews where the Attorney General claimed he encouraged violent behaviour during pro-Palestine protests. Maroons fans are celebrating today after a record 28-point thrashing in Origin 1. Seven League expert Trevor Gilmeister joins me. Gilly, a big win last night, and the big talking point was obviously that horror head knock on Reece Walsh. Swally was sent off. Was it the right call?
Yeah, and I think it's this day and age with the head knocks and so forth, it is. But, I mean, in the 80s, he wouldn't have been. The knock for the Broncos, which is a big loss. So hopefully he comes through it unscathed.
And we know New South Wales lost even with their home ground advantage. Yeah. What sort of chances do they stand for game 2?
Well, I think they'll be saying to themselves in a positive manner that we only had 12 men, for 80% of the game. So, and they'll say, with another person on the field, we can give the Maroons a good run for their money. And we're in Victoria. Most Victorians support Queensland, so hopefully it's a home ground advantage for us down there.
Let's hope so. Do you think there'll be any major changes to the New South Wales lineup?
Oh, I think they'll have to make a couple, but not too many. But the Queensland, we've got 2 club games to go as well, Sam, so hopefully we don't have any injuries in the Queensland team, and I hope New South Wales don't have any injuries as well, so we can see the best players on the field for the second game.
That's what we want. The best of the best.
Yes.
We want 30 on the slide, don't we?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, Gilly. We'll have more of you and your expert analysis at 6 o'clock. Well, Queensland Police have sent a warning to bikies. They'll keep on targeting members of outlaw motorcycle gangs.
Police officers, search warrant. Open the door or we will force entry.
6 people have been charged in an operation aimed at the Mongols in far north Queensland. Operation Victor Jenga has now charged the group with 23 offences. Police also seized several jackets, shirts and patches which were hidden in a suitcase. Accused missing Canberra's killer Greg Lynn has apologised to the families of his alleged victims. In a sensational day of testimony, the former pilot detailed how he wore his Jetstar gloves to clean the horrific scene. Here's Rochelle Brown.
It was standing room only as members of the public squeezed into a packed public gallery to watch Greg Lynn take the stand. It was silent as the defence team's one and only witness arrived and testified he did not kill the missing campers. The former pilot told the jury he used his Jetstar gloves to clean the horrendous crime scene following a confrontation involving a gun in the Wonnagatta Valley in March 2020. The whole plan, ill-conceived as it was for me to disappear. He told the jury, "I wanted all trace of what happened to be gone with me." Prosecutors allege the 57-year-old killed secret lovers Russell Hill and Carol Clay without lawful justification, while Lynn claims they were accidentally killed in two separate struggles. "I was trying to get the shotgun off him for the first time, and I was trying to defend myself the second time. All I can say to the families is that I'm very sorry for the suffering that I caused." In cross-examination, Mr. Lynn said he was too late to go to police and never thought he could have gotten in his car and just driven away until today. "Aren't you trained to be calm and rational?" the Crown prosecutor asked. "I had never been faced with two dead people before. I feared that I would be blamed for it. Improper storage of the firearm, which had resulted in the death of one person, would be devastating for me." Mr. Lynn has admitted he burnt the couple's campsite and bundled their bodies into his trailer and dumped them in remote bushland. The prosecution and the defence will begin their closing arguments once Mr. Lynn's evidence is complete.
Boeing Starliner is this afternoon hurtling towards the International Space Station, finally making its maiden voyage after years of setbacks. The liftoff is ushering in a new era of space competition as Boeing looks to take on SpaceX. US correspondent Miley Hogan reports.
It was a successful takeoff this morning, the rocket making a flawless launch.
And liftoff of Starliner at Atlas V, carrying two American heroes.
Roaring off from Cape Canaveral in Florida, accelerating into the sky, the Boeing Starliner successfully separated from the rocket minutes after takeoff. On board, two NASA astronauts, Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore, for the first ever piloted test flight. It's a major milestone for the project, which has been plagued by multiple delays, including two previous launch attempts.
We all know that when the going gets tough, and it often does, the tough get going. And you have. And Sonny and I are honored to share this dream of spaceflight with each and every one of you. So with that, Elsie, let's get going.
The astronauts will run a series of tests on the spacecraft, their job to make sure it's safe for humans to travel in for future flights. They're currently on their way to the International Space Station, on track to dock there tomorrow. It's all part of Boeing's efforts to develop a spacecraft to rival Elon Musk's SpaceX capsule. It's currently NASA's main form of transport to get astronauts to the International Space Station. If all goes well, Boeing hopes to have its first operational flight early next year, giving NASA more options to send astronauts into space.
New research shows close friends really are good for the heart, with a Monash University study revealing links between social networks and heart health. For more, I'm joined by Dr. Roseanne Frick-Polly. Thanks for joining us. So how does having friends reduce heart disease?
What we did is we asked people that were aged 70 years or more and were healthy to tell me about their social activities. This was nearly 10,000 people. We then followed them for 6 years, and what we found was a few key variables that are really important for cardiovascular health. One of them was being partnered or in a marital relationship, and this was beneficial to both men and women. Slightly more benefit to women with a lower risk of 17%, and for men it was a lower cardiovascular risk of 12%.
How interesting. So what does the research suggest for men and women respectively?
For women, there's a magic number of at least 3 friends that they can discuss private matters with. For men, it was also a magic number of 3, but this was for relatives that they could discuss private matters with or call on for help. In addition, men benefited by participating in activities like chess or playing games, which is a really interesting finding. So I think it encourages people to get out there a bit more.
Certainly. So how could this research help cardiologists and GPs diagnose a person's risk of heart disease?
What my findings are showing is evidence that socialising is important not only for your mental well-being but also for your physical health, and that's now and in the future. So potentially what GPs could be doing is encouraging the people to engage in social activities that have also encouragement for such as physical activity in walking groups or undertaking park run, which is a national option. So it's really important to sort of think about more than just their physical health, changing their lifestyle behaviours, but also encouraging people to undertake social activities like neighbourhood house activities or going to their local library or their council.
That's great. Dr. Frick-Polly, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
To Finance Now, and it was a strong session for the Australian market today. Here's Laura Bezzarati from CommSec.
The Aussie market managed to extend its winning streak to a second straight session, posting a gain of 53 points or 0.7%, putting us within arm's reach of that record high that we hit about 2 months ago, now roughly 1% away from those levels. It certainly has been a day where we've seen improvements right across the board, with all 11 sectors ending in positive territory. Those mining and energy stocks rebounded from 2 days of sharp falls. The big banks, healthcare, tech, all helping today. However, we did see education provider IDP Education on the losers list, hitting a 4-year low after flagging that government restrictions placed on international students are likely to impact the amount of students seeking their services. And right now, the Aussie dollar currently buys 66.5 US cents.
Coming up, new data reveals how much of Brisbane's property market is still considered affordable. And the big payout for a woman left in a police car that was hit by a train.
Tonight in 7 News, a Mighty Maroons win, the Hammers hat-trick, plus Reece Walsh on that horror head knock, and the performance that's divided the nation. Also a youth crime spree, the home targeted again and again, and blast off for Boeing Starliner. 7 News at 6.
A diet high in sodium or salt might increase the risk of eczema, according to a new US study. It's the type of dermatitis that causes dry, itchy skin. Scientists recently discovered that excess sodium is stored in the skin, where it may play a role in the inflammation. Just 1 extra gram or a half a teaspoon of salt increases the likelihood of flare-ups by 22%. It's easy to feel like Brisbane's red-hot property market is out of reach, but this afternoon, new data that could help you in the hunt for an affordable home. Dr. Asti Mariasmo is the Chief Economist at PRD Real Estate. Asti, we know that it's tough to buy in Brisbane, but how many suburbs are still affordable?
It is definitely tough. I mean, Brisbane is now the second most expensive city across the nation, and about 27% of Brisbane is still affordable right now, which does sound a little bit because previously, prior to COVID, we had about 50% of Brisbane that is affordable, and now we only have 27% of Brisbane that is affordable.
That is a massive drop, isn't it? Now, you've had a look at the data to find the top spots which are affordable and livable.
Yes.
Where are they for houses?
So for houses, you're looking at Strathpine and Griffin, and also to the east, Alexandra Hills.
And what about for units?
So for units, again, go to Griffin. So that's a double dipper there for Griffin, and also to Springwood and Richlands.
So there are many more affordable options for apartments.
Yeah.
Are you expecting growth in that area?
There is definitely more affordable options. There's about 44% of Brisbane is still affordable when it comes to apartments. And we are expecting a little bit of growth, not as much as units though, because most of the stock that are coming to Brisbane is definitely units. And that's why, yes, some growth, but not as much as houses.
But a little bit of hope for everybody. That's what we like to hear. Dr. Asti Mariasmo, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Sam.
Well, a woman who was seriously injured while under arrest in the back of a police car has been paid out. The squad car was hit by a train in Colorado in 2022. Yoreni Rios Gonzalez suffered 9 broken ribs and a broken arm. She's been paid out $8.5 million. King Charles has paid tribute to D-Day veterans at a commemorative event marking the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings. His Majesty said their courage, resilience and solidarity helped turn tyranny into freedom.
Let us once again commit ourselves always to remember, cherish and honour those who served that day for we are all eternally in their debt.
The King will head to France with other world leaders for more commemorations tomorrow. Still ahead, a country rendition of the national anthem divides opinions. The NRL stands by its choice, so what did Queenslanders think? And it's been a lovely sunny day. This is a look at Brisbane right now. It's currently 20 degrees. Tony has all the weather details next.
Tonight in 7 News, a Mighty Maroons win, the Hammers hat-trick, plus Reece Walsh on that horror head knock, and the performance that's divided the nation. Also a youth crime spree, the home targeted again and again, and blast off for Boeing Starliner. 7 News at 6.
Good afternoon, Queensland. You're watching 7 News. Checking the weather now from New Farm, and after a few drops of rain overnight, skies have cleared perfectly in time for Queensland Day today. Now, the Story Bridge behind me here is lit up in maroon. Those lights are on now. It'll be more visible after dark. We'll have a better view later on. Let's jump to the satellite, and of course those clear skies over much of Queensland today, but we do have that trough that caused the overnight showers is off the coast. There's also a low digging in on the New South Wales coast, and that system is bringing heavy rain to areas between Sydney and Wollongong. A couple of spots picking up close to 200 millimetres there in the past day. Otherwise, clear skies through central Australia under a belt of high pressure, but that changes in the west with a new cold front closing in on the southern WA coast. That'll bring some wild weather there over the next few hours before pushing into the bite tomorrow, and there's not too much change elsewhere. Those clear skies stay in the same spots, and it'll also remain wet and windy on the southern New South Wales coast. With that low not moving much, we'll continue to get these dry westerly winds pushing up into Queensland. Around the nation tomorrow, rain continues in Sydney, a stormy day in Canberra, showers linger for Perth, cool and dry for Adelaide, Melbourne and Hobart. Back up to northern Queensland, clear skies for everywhere but Weipa and Cape York Peninsula, Cairns 17 up to 26, Townsville a bit warmer on 28. Over southern districts, also a bit of cloud piling up west of the ranges and possible frost for the Northern Downs in Maranoa and Warrego. Sunny along the coast though, 9 to 22 in Maryborough. In the southeast for your Friday, blue skies as far as the eye can see. Westerly winds will be breezy at times and bring a little bit of a chill in the shade. 10 overnight here in Brisbane, then back up to a top of 21 degrees. And how's it looking for the weekend? Sam, I'll have the full forecast coming up at 6.
Thank you, Tony. Well, last night's national anthem for State of Origin divided opinions. The performance by Australian Idol winner Dylan Wright had many up in arms for not sticking to the script. Steve Hart has the story.
Yes, well, hasn't it caused a stir? It was not the traditional version many fans might be used to or believe that it should have been, but with guitar in hand, the reality show winner Dylan Wright strummed out a version that many found difficult to sing along with. And as you say, it certainly has stirred up a lot of talk, both for and against it today.
I love country music style, but I wasn't real impressed, to be honest. It just wasn't, the true anthem that, Aussies are used to.
To me, the national anthem is, you've got to treat it with respect. Bells it out. I just thought it was too slow. You couldn't sing to that.
I thought he did a good job.
A lot of people are bagging him. It's a bit rough.
Yeah, no, I thought it was all right.
But the NRL stand by their choice and say the anthem will always divide opinions, but we're more than happy with their choice and what Dylan delivered last night. We took to the streets today, though, to see if anyone could do better.
I'm actually a singer with Queensland Performing Arts QPAC Choir. Australia's let us rejoice, for we are one and free.
Give him the job. Game 2's yours. Looks like we have a winner, and we're told the anthem tonight for the women's Origin match in Newcastle will definitely be a crowd pleaser.
Sign him up. Well, that's Queensland's 4 p.m. news for this Thursday. Have a good afternoon.